Hi, welcome to Up Your Nerd Cred. Did you used to know everything that was happening in the Marvel and DC universes? Did finding out that some superheroes are from Marvel and some are from DC blow your mind? Has keeping track of everything that's happening there and then realizing that we're talking about the comics universes, not the cinematic ones, and the different universes with their own multiversal crises have all gotten a little bit out of hand? Well, don't worry. Up Your Nerd Cred is here to talk about the gods cosplaying as men, the men cosplaying as gods, and how much the cinematic universes are really leaving out. At the end of each episode, you'll hopefully know a little bit more than you did and get up your nerd cred. I'm your casual nerd host, CiCi. I talked a very big game about who it is that I was going to dress up for as Halloween, and we took the high holy gaze off, but unfortunately, I couldn't convince my child to dress up, and I couldn't convince husband guy to dress up, so I went as a homicidal maniac. They look just like everyone else.
And I am your expert co-host, AM Diaz. And I spent the gay high holy days myself walking around in quite possibly the sluttiest male costume that the X-Men have ever produced.
Who was it?
So it was Havoc, Cyclops' younger brother, during the Inferno storyline where he was transformed by Cyclops' wife, Madeline Pryor, into her goblin prince. So basically think Havoc's full black costume, torn to shreds and as slutty as possible.
Yes, so think about it though. Jareth is the Goblin King, and he's like all codpiece. So the Goblin Prince,
Kind of more exposed stomach and exposed ass.
That sounds right. I'm guessing, as you can tell, though, like this may end up being actually an expert level episode because we have both of us together.
Oh my god, we're together.
It's actually going to be a double episode because we have very important Miss Marvels to talk about. But just because I'm sitting here talking about like the different things we're doing with the format does not mean that we're going to skip the format. So what are we nerding out about this week? Now, reminder, listeners, it does not just have to be heroes and villains, okay? You can nerd out about anything. Me personally, I am nerding out about the fact that like I took my kid to Disneyland for the first time and he had a ball except for the part where he didn't. Like he liked the racer cars and everything until the part where he was done and he really wanted to be done. And I'm just like, I can't let you get out of the car right now because we're not at the end of the ride and they'll say that I'm an unfit mother. And he's just like, but I want to be done now.
Yeah. I remember taking my nephews to Disney for the first time, and that is a common experience with kids. So
yeah,
you're okay. You'll be okay.
It's fine. But also Buzz Lightyear was a little bit too scary for him.
Well, I mean, it's dark. It's a dark ride, so.
Yeah. But I will say that the Astro Blaster, or the Astro Orbiter one, that kid was like flying through the air, had the best time.
Oh, that's good.
He was so cute.
Oh,
He was so cute. I adore this child.
I would hope so. Meanwhile, for me, well, as we mentioned, Halloween was this weekend, and as anybody in the gay community knows, again, we call it the gay high holy days for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Spent the last basically month just attending just so many Halloween-related shenanigans, including the Boulet Brothers Halloween Ball last week, which was a lot of fun. They always put on a great show, good crowd of people, live performances, absolutely fantastic. And then this weekend was the West Hollywood Halloween Carnival. That's always a great thing. I mean, it's super crowded. I think we had over, what was it, like 150,000 people there? Yeah, it gets crazy. The entire street Santa Monica is completely just blocked off, and there are just thousands of people in costumes walking back and forth. The bars are, I mean, if you don't mind paying cover charges, they're not bad to get into, but most people go there just for the street festivities. There's music, live music performances.
If you're going to pay for the bar to get into the bar, yes, go for the street performances. That's like...
Well, I was lucky. I got in to Revolver. They have a special deal. Well, if you get there before a certain time, they'll give you a wristband and you get back in without having to pay a cover. So I was able to do that, but not all of my friends could join early, so...
Well, I mean, some of that is just time management, honestly.
But it also made it to where I could get into a nice bathroom instead of the porta potties, and I did not complain about that.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't even think about the high holy days porta potties. That's probably absolutely horrifying. All right, so I'm gonna take a minute and wash that mental image out of my brain, and we'll be right back to Up Your Nerd Cred. Hi, welcome back. So the question that's burning me up this week is, how many Miss Marvels are there? Now, if you're caught up on the MCU, you're probably familiar with Brie Larson's Captain Marvel, but there's so much about her that the cinematic universe is leaving out, or maybe hasn't gotten to. Who knows? But not only is she not the only Captain Marvel out there, she's not even always Captain Marvel. You are equally correct in saying that Monica Rambeau is Captain Marvel. Sometimes she bears the mantle, sometimes not. And Kamala Khan is honestly a delight as a character, and Naman Vellani is perfectly cast.
But she's not a captain.
Well, she is, a minor. She probably shouldn't be captaining too much.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, look, Captain Morgan is only available if you're 21.
I don't think captain has an age limit.
How old is Captain Plant? That's not important. What matters is that talking about these women is going to be a big task, and so we're going to be doing this as a two-parter. So before we get too deep into it, let's start with introducing our first two main characters that we're talking about. So we have Carol Susan Jane Danvers. Her legal government name has been known as things as Captain Marvel. She's been known as Binary. She's been known as Warbird. That was a
And
word.
of course, as Miss Marvel.
She was created by Roy Thomas and Gene Colan and came out in Marvel Superheroes number 13 in 1968. Secondarily, we have Monica. Secondarily, I don't know if it's secondary. Another.
Technically, she would be the third Captain Marvel because
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Another Captain Marvel that we have, Monica Rambeau.
This is my Captain Marvel introduction.
You've seen her in the Captain Marvel movie and things of that nature, and also in WandaVision. Very important. But she has been known as Photon and Spectrum, and also Captain Marvel. So Monica was created by Roger Stern and John Romita Jr., and she first debuted in Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16 in 1982. We're going to start talking about Carol. So she starts out as a human Air Force captain. She's working with Captain Marvel. Now, I want to point out that the way Kree names are stylized so that we could read them as a singular word. For example, in Irva and theirs.
So before we go too far, let's also define this. So Marvel is technically the very first Captain Marvel.
Yes.
He was the one who got the first solo issue, and his whole deal is that he's a member of the Kree species. He was a scientist, but he was also kind of a scout for the Kree Empire.
Yeah.
And, he was sent there on a mission, but kind of fell in love with our planet and decided to stick around as a superhero, at which point he joined into the United States military kind of as a cover, and that's where he developed his relationship with Carol Danvers.
So that's how the test pilot was able to come and be working for Captain Marvel in the first place.
Well, the movies and the comics did different things with their approaches.
Okay, well, how did it work in the comics then?
Well, with the comics, like I said, Marvel took on a human disguise of God, I can't even remember what his his alternate name was, but he posed as a human and started working with the United States government. He was a scientist, and he was just kind of like basically dealing with the alien threats and kind of dragged Carol into this sort of situation.
So Carol was just supposed to be just like a random like Air Force lady who just happens to be assigned to somebody?
Well, kind of, yeah. She was essentially being created, set up as a love interest for Captain Marvel initially, because that's usually how it worked back then.
Of course it is.
But the thing was, they kind of just found that Carol was a lot more interesting as her own character, so her and Marvel had a flirtatious sort of thing going. As far as I'm aware, it never progressed into anything like Lois Lane and Superman situation.
So this is the reason why then in the movie they went ahead and gender swapped Marvel for Annette Bening so that we didn't have to worry about like some random romance popping up.
Arguably, but also because they need to simplify the storyline because, a Marvel, basically, if they were to go with comic, they need their own entire movie just for him.
Fair.
Because he did have a pretty complex backstory, which we're not going to get into because this is already going to be a long enough episode.
We're talking about three very, very marvelous. Anyway.
But yeah, unfortunately, with the movies, they had to simplify it. So instead, she was a specific scientist working with the Earth government, the United States government. She had a secret identity. They didn't know she was Kree. And she was developing, Kree technology that eventually led to Carol's powers being unlocked.
We will say, though, like the movie, she did gain her powers after an explosion, but instead of it being an Infinity Stone that's powering her, the Kree tech explosion was actually merged her DNA with Captain Marvel.
Until the retcon years later.
Do you wanna tell them what the retcon is then?
So over the last, I don't know, it's maybe in the last 5 years, I can't pinpoint the exact time, they basically revealed that Carol's family is in fact alien. I believe it was her mother who was, or grandmother or somebody. One of them was Kree, and as a result, she is half Kree. So it didn't merge the DNA, just unlocked existing power.
Okay, I'll accept this. I will say that whenever the incident did happen, though, it was in the 70s, as I believe in 1977 when this happens. And so she gets all of these powers. She's got a whole bunch of stuff going on, and she goes by the moniker Miss Marvel. Like,
Because Captain Marvel was still a thing, so she couldn't really take over the role at the time.
plus, it's also a lot of like second wave feminism at the time in like the late 70s.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of making sure that we're not necessarily defining a woman by how she is in relation to a man. So or Mrs. had always been used for that definition. So Ms. as
MI.
MS as the appellation was how women were able to sit there and exist as individual people, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and that was pretty progressive at the time, especially for comics where, a lot of times they were just have counterparts in a bit more of a, the Batgirls, the Supergirls.
Mm.
And like you said, with the Ms. Marvel, that was basically like, yeah, she's still a distaff counterpart of Captain Marvel.
But she's not attached to him.
Yeah. Which is ironic because characters like Batgirl, even though they were still distaff counterparts, were not attached to the guy. It was like Batgirl was not Batman's official partner. She was doing her own thing.
Yeah, but
And that's kind of what Carol was doing too.
But as we move through and get into the 80s, she actually joined the Avengers, which is pretty cool until the Avengers and a. Before Rogue joined the X-Men, as you recall, she was not necessarily on like the winning team or the nicest team.
Yes.
Um,
What was the name of the team again? Right, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
yeah, I don't understand how it is that they were able to join this and think that they might have possibly been doing something that was anything other. I don't know.
Well, I think they were playing with the expectations of humanity. They always assumed they were going to be treated by villains, so they're like, we might as well be evil if they're going to call us that.
Okay, so if you're just going to accuse somebody of cheating all the time, then they're just going to end up cheating because
Yeah, they're like, might as well do it.
if I'm going to get in trouble for it all the time, I might as well at least crack, have a nut or something. So, but she's joined the Avengers, and then Carol Danvers and Rogue have an incredibly impactful encounter.
Yes.
Um,
And it's an encounter that, to this day still affects the both of them.
yeah.
Because, during a confrontation, Rogue grabs a hold of Carol and takes a little too much. Because Rogue's power is to absorb the life force, energy, powers, and memories of those that she touch.
Unfortunately, if she grabs all of it, it's kind of a problem.
Because it can kill or put somebody into a coma. And with her, a lot of times the mind and powers become permanent.
It's really kind of a dollhouse kind of vibe then, having a whole other person a little bit in your head.
Yes, and that's an ongoing problem with Rogue, where she technically still has many of those minds and memories rooting around in her brain, to where part of the reason why she went to Professor Xavier after the Carol incident was because of the fact that Carol was taking over her mind. She was consuming her thoughts, her memories. She didn't know who she really was anymore, because Carol is a strong-willed person and did
That's
not
putting
take
it
kindly
mildly.
to being forced into Rogue's brain.
Does Carol like Remy?
They don't really have much of a, I think she is fine with him. She doesn't really have an issue with Gambit, as far as I know. But Rogue, on the other hand, that's been, well, like I said, during that period, Carol was part of Rogue's mind. Even when Carol's body recovered, Carol was still in Rogue's head, and there was a point where they were starting to, like, swap personalities.
See, and this is the reason why whenever I made the comment about how I think Moon Knight's like the main DID guy, you're just like, I don't know about all that
Yeah,
because
because there, for especially during the Australia period for the X-Men, they kept having a reoccurring thing where uh, Carol would take over Rogue's body, and the X-Men were just like, "Oh, it's just Carol. Okay, hey Carol, let's go shopping. Rogue, you're back. All right, cool. Carol bought you all these clothes."
I mean, now if Carol has a separate bank account than Anna Marie does, that could be something useful. But it's nice that though
I feel like the regular Carol would not have allowed that.
that's not important. What matters is that if Carol is going to take over and like be the fronting personality, Carol needs to have the bank account to pay for all the stuff that they just that they just bought. I just feel like Anna Marie shouldn't be getting, like,
Well, here's
overdraft charges because
oh, no,
Carol
here's the
decided to
thing.
act a fool.
She should, because remember, everything that happened is Rogue's fault, so she owes Carol a lot.
Okay, well then maybe Rogue should update Carol's wardrobe. So on that wardrobe update, though, later in the 80s, Carol was exposed to a white hole and becomes binary. And now listen,
I'm trying not to make a joke right now.
nasty. I will just tell you that I have a very strong appreciation for white holes as a conceit. I will wax absolutely poetic about them, but essentially I think that white holes are on the same level as black holes. You can only prove them mathematically right now. Doesn't mean that they're not real because I would like to point out as an aside that you made faces when I was telling you about caulking my window, but now I'm talking about, like, cosmic.
Look, all I'm saying is the terminology we're using is probably going to get us demonetized.
We have a Patreon announcement to make later for that exact purpose. But Carol is living her most binary life. She's a, cosmic level energy wielder. She's hanging out with the Starjammers. So
yeah, Carol goes from the black swimsuit look to a white swimsuit look that also makes her look like she's on fire.
I mean,
yeah. During that time, when she became binary, she did temporarily join the X-Men. They helped her kind of recover after what happened with Rogue. She spent a lot of time with Professor Xavier, who was telepathically helping her rebuild her mind. I believe it was Spider-Woman who brought her to the X-Men. And
Jessica?
Yeah. Jessica Drew brought her to the X-Men, and actually, there's a storyline that happens during her time with the X-Men. Do we want to delve into her weird baby thing?
I feel like it's probably going to be pretty relevant. I skipped a little bit of, like, the whole baby, like, who the baby daddy was with Catwoman. And I want to make sure that we're getting, like, the full baby story with this lady.
Okay, so if we're okay with going back a little bit, so when Carol was still part of the Avengers, she had a point where she was part of that ever lazy writing thing, the magical pregnancy.
Oh, God, I hate those.
Where she just suddenly woke up pregnant one day, no memory of a father, no, hookups, no nothing. And she goes to the Scarlet Witch and Vision, and, they're like, she's pregnant, she's having a baby.
How far along was she? Because, like, there's...
Well, that's a funny thing. She was probably, she thought she was only, maybe a few weeks pregnant. The baby was hyper-accelerating. And it turns out the reason for this was, at some point, Carol was kidnapped by the supervillain Immortus? Immortus, I think this is
one of the King variants?
Yes.
Yeah.
And she was basically taken to his dimension, where he used his machines to subtly change her mind and make her fall in love with him.
My mind is subtly changed. Oh my God, I'm in love.
And what do we call this when somebody is forcibly manipulated through means outside their...
Coercion!
Non-consent. And as a result, Carol did get knocked up. But the thing is, because Immortus lived in this weird dimension outside of dimensions, time was working weird, which is why the pregnancy, and thanks to timey-wimey shenanigans.
This sounds like the kind of thing that is the reason why River Song has regeneration.
Oh, yes. Because turns out that the baby that Carol was carrying was not just the child of her rapist. It was, in fact, her rapist.
I'm sorry. What? How did she...
Yeah, Mortius, by getting with Carol and doing this, essentially gave birth to himself.
Wow. That is... It's not a bootstrap paradox or grandfather paradox. It's a mess. That's what that is. That's a mess.
And the thing was, when Carol gave birth to the baby, which hyper-aged into Immortus, and is calling her both his mother and his lover.
That's nasty.
For some reason, manipulations affected Carol to where she decided that she was going to leave and go with this guy back to that pocket dimension because she loved him.
Okay, didn't somebody end up blind in the Oedipus story? Can we have, somebody end up blind because of this? That's nasty.
Oh, here's the thing that makes it really messed up. The Avengers, rather than stop her and go, this insane, this is not right, they're like, oh, okay, Carol, bye, we hope you're happy. And Carol went off with her rapist baby.
Rebaby?
Rebaby.
Anyway,
baby.
So now she does not always have the baby as a main focus.
This is the thing, yeah, it's like she disappeared, it was taken out of the Avengers comics for a little while. Then she came back, then the whole thing with Rogue happened. She started to get her memories back. And then when the Avengers found out that she was back, they came to go see her. And Carol had words for them.
I would imagine so.
She literally slapped Thor, screaming at them about how they let her go off with this guy when it was clear that she was not in her right mind, that she had been manipulated, that he had altered her, emotions and everything to make her, pliable to his advances.
Damn, it sounds kind of like she's really frustrated at the fact that her friends let her, like, wander off into an abusive relationship without any kind of, like, pushback or,
Yeah,
like, concern about her welfare.
100%. And, this is the thing that really sucks about this is this took place in Avengers 200,
Ooh,
the 200th issue of the Avengers comics, and this is how they ended it.
that's no, that is
Yeah, so it was very cathartic when later writers had her, as part of the X-Men, tell off the Avengers for what they allowed happen.
yeah, because 'cause Imma tell you this, have not had a single bad boyfriend that my friends have not sat there and told me, "We hate this guy, and you are welcome to date him because you are an adult, but we hate this guy."
Yeah,
Yeah.
so and as we were going back, this was the time where Carol decided to join the X-Men, and she was a part of the team for a short time until a certain somebody came knocking on the door.
Not, 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 not.
And that certain somebody was Rogue, the woman who took her life.
Yeah, well, Anna Marie has her own situation going on. But you know what's interesting? At some point, Carol Danvers did, in fact, take on a whole other moniker.
Well, before that,
What?
she did, when she left the X-Men, she did join the Starjammers for a point,
Oh,
too.
that's true. I mentioned that the Starjammers were there, but I didn't like say anything
Yeah.
about them. So like,
She went off with Havoc and Cyclops' father, Corsair, was a space pirate for a little while, until she eventually returned to Earth, where she took on.
Warbird, where she's dealing with PTSD, she's dealing with alcoholism, she's dealing with the kind of things that, like, in the 90s, they're, like, actually willing to acknowledge. I believe we've talked about this in our, like, ages and things like that, how the modern age is, for some reason, like, 40 years when every other age is, like, 20. It's kind of stupid. But,
Yeah, and she also dealing with a really bad costume that they gave her at the time before they gave her back her Miss Marvel costume.
well, I mean, look, there's some interesting outfits that people have worn over the course of time. There have been mullets.
So many mullets.
But so the Captain Marvel image, though, that you probably have in your head is more based on the like post like 2010s kind of version when Kelly Sue DeConnick was actually like taking over the character. And so that's when she like really like took over like the character, did like a bit of a redesign, and that's where we have like the higher, further, faster that
Yeah,
became the tagline. So
this was a time where they decided that, Carol deserved to stop being a distaff counterpart. She had been Miss Marvel or, those other identities for decades. But the thing was, Carol, by this point, had led the Avengers. She had been part of multiple teams, and she became a very prominent, important character. So it was just like, why is she still Miss Marvel, the distaff counterpart? And instead, it was time to finally make her Captain Marvel.
she got a promotion.
Yeah, well, she was already a captain at the time.
So that's the other
Yeah.
thing. Like, I guess she could have gotten a
But
promotion to Major Marvel, but that just
yeah,
doesn't roll off
but
the
she
tongue the
decided
same.
that she, needed to finally step up, and it was also a way of her honoring Marvel
Yes.
because, yeah, there were other Captain Marvels after Marvel passed away, but Carol was his direct, she's the one who basically took up the mantle after he died,
Or, took up his DNA after he died.
depending on which story. But yeah, it's like Marvel had died years, like decades ago, due to cancer of all things.
Cancer? Okay.
Yeah, aliens dying of cancer. I'm like, well, okay.
I mean,
You would just think that the Kree would have, like, cancer cures at this point if they have international or intergalactic travel.
I just want to know what the Supreme Intelligence is doing to make sure that cancer is eradicated. Apparently nothing. Oh my goodness. Is the Supreme Intelligence like our current, like, HHS?
Sounds familiar.
Anyway, so when we're really thinking about though like the more modern versions of Captain Marvel, that's where we have like the higher, further, faster, and it's also I think something that is worth like pointing out is that there's a lot of times that like the blonde woman is really counted out as just being,
The bimbo.
I mean, look, Sabrina Carpenter is reclaiming the vibe, but she's reclaiming the vibe on purpose, not and it's not being foisted upon her. And I think that Captain Marvel really has I should call it Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, has like done her best to sit there and be like, just because I have this hair color does not mean that I am not like a full person with a whole bunch of like feelings and
Yeah,
thoughts
one
and all
thing that we
that.
didn't really talk about yet was the fact that Carol, I mean, we mentioned it a little bit, but Carol was created to be or well, not created, but adapted to being a feminist character. And this went back as far as taking on the identity of Miss Marvel, like we said. But
Second wave feminism.
but then there was stuff like for a while she left the military and actually became a editor for the Daily Bugle, working on their feminist magazine. And she was very much pushing women progress, women voices during that time, and that was something that followed her throughout her run. Throughout the years and even into now, it's still going on. They're trying to present her as a strong leader of women's movements and stuff like that. But unfortunately, Carol does have her ups and downs, especially in more modern days now that she's become more prominent.
She's not become like one of those gender critical ones, right?
No, definitely not.
Okay. Gender critical is like the nice way that we call people TERFs.
Oh no, Carol is 100%. She is an ally as much as possible, although she has had her ups and downs when it comes to being a good ally to mutants.
That's fair.
Because back before she became Captain Marvel, during the events of M-Day and Civil War, they were happening kind of concurrently. She was tasked by Tony Stark to try to get the X-Men to join the registration side of the Registration Act after the big attack that killed thousands of people because of metahuman's powers.
I know that, like, I'm just making mountains out of molehills, but I feel like every time they're just like, hey, we have to register every single person for different things, just so we know who you are and all that jazz. That gets a little bit
dicey, considering the fact that the X-Men have for years been dealing with registration of mutants, the government trying to force that. Her showing up and trying to convince them to join the registration side did not go over well, especially when she did that after a majority of the students of the Xavier School were brutally murdered by mutant supremacists or anti-mutant supremacists. Yeah, her showing up and trying to convince Cyclops and Emma Frost of all people that they should join the registration side did not end well, as Emma decided to induce more trauma to a woman who's already got alcoholism and PTSD.
I was wondering, I'm just like, considering telling Emma Frost.
Yeah, mere hours after, or not hours, but like a day or so after her students were brutally murdered. And keep in mind, Emma has lost a lot of students.
Like
Focus back to
mom, but yeah.
Carol and her ups and downs as a hero.
Making poor choices to come and try and intimidate Emma Frost.
Yeah, when she tried, well, not even intimidate. She was trying to be like, well, since I was a member of the X-Men and we were friends, I'm sure I could convince you. And Emma's just like, hey, I'm going to put you at the moment that all of my students died. I'm going to show you, when people were brutally murdered and lost their powers because of your teammate, the Scarlet Witch. And hey, I'm going to put you in the grave of one of my dead students. How's this feel? Do you like it? Is it fun?
That is some radical empathy training right there.
And yeah, no, she made Captain Marvel, who was a complete badass, break down. And she, it was at the point where Cyclops was like, hi, Carol, you need to go. And
yeah, because my girlfriend is kind of really pissed at you and it'll be worse.
Yeah, he's like, if you stay here longer, you're going to be comatose by the end of this.
It's not going to end well.
And, unfortunately, Carol has a habit of not always making the best decisions, because then there was Civil War II.
No.
So Civil War II was a storyline where during this time period, Marvel was really trying to push the Inhumans as a thing because they didn't have the rights to the X-Men at the time for their movies.
Was this when they tried to do the Inhumans TV show? Mm-hmm. Look, the Inhumans TV show exists, and we acknowledge that it exists.
Oh, not really. Even Marvel kind of ignores it.
We acknowledge that it exists. We don't necessarily go back and revisit it too frequently. Acknowledging that it exists, I think, is plenty.
Yeah, I mean,
if we don't acknowledge that it exists, then it's going to be very weird when we have old dude pop up in Multiverse of Madness.
Fair enough. Although that was probably an alternate universe version, so.
Fair. I think the only time that we've had Coulson pop up from S.H.I.E.L.D., S.H.I.E.L.D. to that, though, is the... Anyway, we're not focusing on that either. Yeah. We have a lot of things on the calendar.
Going back. So they're trying to push the Inhumans, and the storyline of Civil War II is where a new Inhuman has the ability to foresee the future. And Carol sees this as an opportunity because she thinks that they can utilize his future vision to anticipate threats to the Earth. Fortunately, the visions are never 100% clear or accurate.
Is it because free will exists and people can do completely different things?
Yeah, because one thing that a lot of characters who can see the future say is time is constantly moving. The vision I see now does not guarantee the final outcome. Carol was pretty like, no, this will work because unfortunately, during one of the visions that were seen, her boyfriend at the time War Machine, Rhodey.
Rudy?
Rhodey was killed during the incident, and She-Hulk was put into a coma. And this kind of
That was a
gallivanted.
to the head.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, because it was against Thanos.
That is a real severe pop to the head. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
And so Carol, partially because of the trauma and partially because she doesn't always make the best decisions, decided to go kind of fascist and utilize this to basically, what was that movie with Tom Cruise?
And Jack Nicholson?
Yeah, it was that one where they kept like catching criminals before they committed crimes.
Minority Report.
Yeah, so she started going full Minority Report and going after people who had not committed a crime and trying to take them out. This accumulated into stuff like Hawkeye killing the Hulk because the kid saw a vision of the Hulk freaking out and killing people.
The Hulk freaking out?
Yeah, but the thing was, Bruce Banner at the time had not had a Hulk out in like a year in that storyline.
Yeah, but even still, I would like to point out that it's not a new thing for the Hulk to
Right,
have a moment.
but the thing was, they were treating him like a nuclear threat, and because of the fact that everyone was afraid that this vision was going to come through, Hawkeye ended up killing Bruce Banner when Bruce hadn't really done anything. I mean, yeah, he was like experimenting on the radioactive DNA stuff, but there had been no immediate threat danger to justify killing him. And
I wonder how much Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to impact the Marvelverse, because there's there's different probabilities of different
well, that's
things,
always been that's always been part of the thing,
right?
as far as back as Excalibur and beyond.
But
before that,
part of the thing is just if there exists there are worlds where these kind of things have happened, but if Beast can come back from the past, find out that he actually turned into a terrible person, and does not become a terrible person, then that impacts things, and so the visions that you necessarily see are not going to trying to fight fate, often makes it come true, but trying to do just something different is not, there are ways you can do something
yeah.
different without fighting fate.
But it's like that storyline just kept accumulating, and it, like, Carol even had this guy have a vision where the Miles Morales Spider-Man is standing over Captain America's dead body. Carol, and keep in mind, this was during the evil Steve period where it was not the true Captain America. Carol decided that they need to arrest Miles then and there because of the potential threat that he was going to kill Captain America. Keep in mind that Miles is maybe a 15-year-old boy during that time.
Miles is a little Afro-Latina boy.
Yeah, so that's not a good look going after for Carol. It's like, all right, you are predetermining that this Puerto Rican black child is going to kill Captain America based on the not 100% always accurate visions of what might happen. And keep in mind, the Steve that died in that vision was the evil Steve who probably deserved to die because he was a fucking Nazi. So, but this is the thing that just makes it where Miles is having a freak out when he finds this out. He goes to Washington, the scene of the crime, and it's just like, oh my God, I don't want this to happen. I just want to see my mom. And
because he's 15.
Yeah. The thing is,
he's a baby.
As awful as Stevel was, because he's a fucking Nazi.
Yeah, but Stevel is a hilarious name.
He still had this moment where he shows empathy towards Miles. It's like, what do you want? And Miles just says, I just want to see my mom. And Steve's just like, then go. So it's like, I have no sympathy for Nazis, but at this time it's just like, well, he did comfort Miles, so I'm going to give him one positive trait.
Yes, well, that just means that he's at negative infinity -1.
But yeah, but Carol was like, no, we need to go after it. And she tried to fight Captain America. Captain America's like, really? Even if it's evil Captain America, she didn't know that. It's like, and yeah, it's like Carol she had these points where she kind of went into fascist mentality during that storyline.
I mean, that's really
to where
even problem when you have a whole lot of power.
To where Iron Man, the person who was pushing for the Registration Act, was just he was the one opposing this. He was like, no, this is not cool. I am not down for this. There's too many factors to justify this sort of thing.
That makes sense.
And, eventually the storyline got resolved because the kid's future vision allowed him to ascend to basically a cosmic level being.
Okay.
So basically it's like, oh, he's like a god now, so we don't have to worry about him anymore.
I'm wondering if his visions get any more accurate. What I will say...
Well, we've never seen him since.
That's fair. What I will say is that Carol has done a lot of Miss Marvel, and she's done a lot.
Yeah.
But it's not all about Carol. We can't sit there and make this entire thing about Carol, because honestly, I need a little bit of Monica on my side.
Yeah, I'm a Monica fan, period. It's like, I love Carol, she's a great character, and she has been a consistently good leader a lot of times in the Avengers. I think she's still leading the team at this point.
Hmm.
It might have changed because I'm not a regular Avengers reader, but, she's a good leader when she doesn't have her weird, like, out of character fascist moments, which we're gonna say that some writers make choices.
Yeah,
But
well,
for me, Captain Marvel, first one I ever read was Monica Rambeau. She was like, I started picking up issues of X Factor when, I'd read the Dark Phoenix saga, and then I heard about Jean Grey's resurrection, and that led me to reading X Factor, which happened in that series.
hmm,
And that led me to find out how Jean got into X Factor, which was an Avengers story where Monica Rambeau was the one who found Jean Grey at the bottom of Jamaica Bay.
Jamaica. Wait, where is Jamaica?
Not in New York.
Look, I will remind you all that I'm in New York, so like when people say
Yeah.
like Jamaica, my first thought is it either the island or is it in Queens? Which one? Which
It might
Jamaica are we
have
talking
been, no,
about?
it might have been Queens. It might have been Queens.
Yeah, so
Yeah, because maybe.
Jamaica, is it the island
Yeah,
or is it Queens?
it was Queens. It was Queens. Oh, yeah, because she was in New York and she found the pod that Jean Grey's body was in from before the Dark Phoenix saga storyline when she first became Phoenix.
It's very difficult to be this
Yeah.
woman.
But Monica is one of those characters that was very, like, important at the time. We had very few, black
1982?
characters.
Like they just barely like again, we're going to be having a conversation about this like a little later at the end of the year, but trying to have a black character that wasn't all like, like heavily focused on their blackness
Yeah,
in that time frame.
if they weren't basically written as a blaxploitation character, that was kind of rare.
Yeah.
Because it's like, Power Man.
Cage.
I mean, it's like, I'm a huge fan of that character, but he was originally written in very much in a blaxploitation approach.
Didn't the man have like a chain as a belt because he was showing about how like he was like released from his chains or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look.
And just the way that they wrote his dialogue and stuff like that, it was very much like, the jive turkey kind of dialogue that you would have heard in, like.
And now all I can think about is the scene on Airplane where that white lady's like, I speak jive.
Thank God they never had Iron Fist trying to, like, match his energy in those stories. But he's.
But I like, and we're gonna that like we're not gonna go too deep into it, because that is a whole other rant. But
Yeah,
I
but
have to say, I could not stand that Danny Rand, who they cast as Danny Rand. He was irritating, and I do not care that he was the
I am the
immortal
Iron
Iron
Fist.
Fist.
No one cares.
Like you are without a doubt the worst Iron Fist.
I keep hoping that. So it is confirmed that they're bringing back Jessica Jones for season 2 of Daredevil.
Yes.
There's still rumors that they're hoping to bring back not Iron Fist, Luke Cage at some point.
That'll be interesting.
Because we have gotten some hints in the Daredevil show about what's going on with Luke, but there's been no announcements of Iron Fist, and I'm hoping for a nice little retcon.
That we don't have Iron Fist?
Oh no, that we get a different Iron Fist.
I'm fine with this. Variants are fine. I'm good with variants.
Yeah. But let's go back to the important person.
Let's focus on Monica.
Yeah, Monica.
Let's get our black girl
who
magic
is
on.
an icon for me. Like, read her, she had this amazing white costume with these weird little wings and like her natural hair curl and stuff like that.
Oh my God, Tiana's hair. Was Tiana Paris is her last name, I believe?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. The way that like they have her natural hair out and just popping all the time, and they could have sat there and like straightened her hair or like turned her into like, because like in the 90s there were a lot of girls who were having their hair like like straightened.
It's Storm, who's one of the most iconic black characters. Yeah, she has white hair, but they always drew it straightened.
That lady has 1B hair at best.
Oh no, I love the fact that modern stories have Storm with curly hair.
Good. Although I guess like, I mean, like, again, I'd say original Storm had like 1B, but I guess like they coarsened up her hair over the course of time.
Yeah. Well, they did it for Krakoa, and then they just decided to keep it. I'm like, I want to imagine that she always had that, and she just hadn't found a way to straighten her hair using her powers.
You know what? Actually, I think that she probably just, because, relaxers had been out by this point.
Yeah, but she was living in Africa. She was living in an Africa village where she did not have access to CVS.
I got nothing. All right, focusing on Monica, though. So, like, when we were first introduced to her, right, she is a New Orleans Harbor Patrol Police Lieutenant, Monica Rambeau, right? So her first appearance was Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16, and she was created by Roger Stern and John Romita Jr., so that way you don't have to go and rewind to figure out where it is that her introduction was. Now you have it. Okay, so, but she's in New Orleans, she's a Harbor Patrol Lieutenant, and there is a dimension disrupting device. Try saying that 3 times.
Dimension disrupting this right. I can't even say one.
See? Peter Pepper picked a pack of pickled peppers. So, like the media like has actually like dubbed her Captain Marvel before. Like she hasn't even like met Marvel at
Yeah,
this point.
she was created, and they basically just used the name. They had no real connection to the Marvel legacy at this point, which, was, I imagine, a little bit controversial for some fans. The racist ones for the obvious
I
reasons,
was gonna
but
say, like, if there's a black person who's doing something, there's going to be a
yeah,
problem with
but
the
there's
fans.
always a question when you take a character identity that has been defined by a certain character and give it to somebody completely unrelated.
You mean the way that they lost their minds when Ariel was played by a black character?
Well, no, because like I say, this was where it's like the legacy is being given to somebody who has no connection to the original character. With this,
Okay,
it's more a question of like this is the racist thing where it's like a black woman's playing Ariel. That
so
wasn't the controversy I was talking about.
so Falcon getting Cap's shield is because they were hanging out together, and so that one
Uh,
was slightly more
not
acceptable.
because they had a long history. They were like best friends.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm
Yeah,
saying is just like again, like
yeah,
they were friends, they were cool. There was a whole like thing where they worked together, and it was still wasn't acceptable. So
yeah.
basically,
But with
anti-blackness is universal, and
yeah,
it's kind of a pain. But
but it's like Carol or not Carol. With Monica, she had the double thing of like there's the first part that she is a black woman taking over the Captain Marvel identity, and keep in mind we have not had a female Captain Marvel at this point.
and remember, this is 1982 too, so like her having her natural hair out is also like a
Yeah.
huge to do.
So there's a controversy of a black woman taking the identity of a white. Keep in mind, Marvel was not truly white. He was
Yeah,
blue guy kind of thing. But she took over the identity of him, so there's that controversy. And then there was just the fact that she had no relationship to him. It wasn't like Carol, where she got her powers from him. She wasn't associated with the Kree in any way, shape, or form. She was literally just this black woman police officer in New Orleans who got dubbed Captain Marvel. So there was the controversy of just like, who is this woman and why does she get to have the moniker of Captain Marvel?
yeah,
So she kind of came in, it was a uphill battle for her from the start,
that's
unfortunately.
pretty much the same thing. Like, there's always going to be something for it to be an uphill battle about. But this lady came in, and not only did she sit there and fight her uphill battle, she became the leader of the Avengers at one
Hmm.
point, the first black woman to lead the team.
Yep. And she
Now,
did great in her time period there.
I just think that
It
to have
lived in some
Captain
ways.
Marvel,
Huh?
the Avengers just need to have a Captain Marvel. Otherwise, like it just is, it's a mess.
Yes.
So
But I mean, like I say, I love Carol, but I really do feel like Monica needs more
yeah,
focus.
no,
But anyways, after she was part of the Avengers for a number of years, but then after she kind of left the Avengers, she sort of just unfortunately meandered. She didn't really have the same set thing as some of the other characters did,
yeah.
and eventually they brought in other Captain Marvels, like the son of the original Marvel, and then there was Marvel Boy, and during this time period, the Captain Marvel identity was being passed around, like
A party bottom.
I was gonna say Popper's at a party with a party bottom, but okay,
Yeah, whatever works.
yeah, the Captain Marvel identity was a passed around party bottom of it's like next to Phoenix.
I'm
Those
just,
two things get passed around all the time.
I'm just saying, like the number of people who borne the moniker is a little bit,
Shocking, yeah.
yeah. So
Well, I mean, it's like Marvel Comics; they want to keep that going, but during that
yeah,
time
that's,
period,
but they ain't
yeah.
gotta make it like as nasty.
Yeah, but unfortunately, during that time period, Monica ended up taking on a different name. So she lost her powers, regained them, and then she adopted the code name of Photon.
Hmm.
And then it was Pulsar and Spectrum.
Like,
If we
really
got
likes these light based, like,
well, I mean, her powers are light based,
is she a wave or is she a particle then?
kind of both. I mean, depends on how the writers want her powers to use.
You mean the way that light is?
But yeah, all of these identities too have been name dropped in the Avengers films in the MCU.
Mm.
So in WandaVision, I think her mom went by
Photon, I think.
Photon.
I think Photon was like her mom's code
Yeah.
name.
And then with her, like,
Did they mention like some of the like was like Pulsar like one of the
well,
names that was like?
didn't Miss Marvel try to give her a code?
I think that was when like she got a
Yeah,
couple of the
they gave like name drops.
she was trying to do it, and Monica like
in
Monica
Marvels.
in the Marvels was just like no,
Yeah.
no. But to be fair, Monica is also sitting there just like I do not want this 15-year-old naming me because I have already got plenty of stuff happening all at once right now.
Yeah, and not to mention, like, the MCU version of Monica is a lot less, I want to be a superhero, and just, like, I want to be a good soldier kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, but she also has a lot of her own like drama and stuff.
Oh, yeah, trauma, so much trauma, but, that's a different version.
But I'm just gonna say, like, I honestly would wanna fight my Aunt Carol too if she straight disappeared on me like that.
Fair enough.
If you disappear on my kid like that, if you pop back up and he punches you in the face, I'm gonna be like, "Well, I guess you shouldn't have disappeared on him."
Fair enough.
So, after like, she's living her most photon and pulsar and spectrum life, like, she's really spending some time, like, popping like, she's not really, like, doing a lot going on, but, like, in, like, the 2000s, and, like, she moves into, like, a next wave, so it's, like, really, like, where they're, like, doing a like, kind of a satirical take on, like, kind of the stuff that
Yeah,
she was
they're kind
doing.
of, it's like her and Boom Boom from X-Force and,
I'm sorry, that
I know, Boom Boom, Boomer, Meltdown. Tabby's got a lot of different names, but, it was her
I'm just
and
surprised they didn't call anybody, like, boot knocking or something like that.
I mean, given time, give Tabitha some time, but she does like to knock boots. And this is not slut shaming. This is like her. She is a very open woman.
Sex is a very enjoyable thing, okay? Like, Beyoncé had a whole lady talking about it in French so that we could all,
Yeah,
like.
but Next Wave was a good way that got a lot of people back into Monica because she was a very focused character in that. She got a very, interesting costume with like a long trench coat and stuff. And, it was a fun book and people really enjoyed that and were really drawn to these characters, in particular Monica, which I do think helped bolster her in a lot of ways to where she started to be utilized more in the comics. And that led into modern era storylines where she is now a member of the Ultimates, which not to be confused with the Ultimate Universe series
Because in the Ultimates, we do not have any, twins who are making out with each other.
or excessive cannibalism. Instead, the Ultimates in the main 616 universe is like a think tank of superheroes, created by Carol Danvers and Blue Marvel, who that man needs an entire series to himself, but essentially is if Superman and Reed Richards had a baby together with
No, absolutely not. We do not need brains and brawn in the same body. That's
but
too
oh
much.
no, Blue Marvel is brains and bronze, but an ethical brains and bronze.
No, my
So
god.
and he is also a man of color. So he is a very, so we've got a black man who's both powerful and intelligent and well respected in the community, which is
You know what? It's fine because he is a fictional character and therefore husband guy doesn't have to worry about me going and finding this gentleman at this point. But I would like to point out, as I'm mentioning husband guy, we have to come back a little bit to the real world and recognize that, oh no, we're at the end of part 1 of this podcast.
wow.
Yeah.
Time went by.
Well, if you're having a whole bunch of fun and you're talking about some badass ladies, things are going to kind of fly a little bit. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with our thrilling conclusion.
Oh, we didn't talk about the
Welcome back to our thrilling conclusion. So, as we're wrapping up this first part of like the discussion of the Marvels, I want to say like what kind of themes are you picking up from Carol and what kind of themes like what should we really take away as we're like envisioning Carol Danvers as a character and what kind of things are we like starting to put together for Monica as a character?
well with Carol, it's very much what we kept mentioning. The second wave feminism being like this independent, strong woman who plays by her own rules and takes her own approach to life. Yes, she's fumbled. Yes, she's messed up,
Yeah.
and she has made choices that are not always the best for everybody. But the thing is, she is always moving forward. She's moving higher. She's moving faster. You know,
Moving further.
it's like Carol's a character who she's a work in progress. Something that's always interesting about her is the fact that she is flawed. She is not a perfect character, which is something that there's a lot of hate for her in the movies and stuff like that. People kept
That's
saying,
because they're mad because Brie Larson isn't smiling all the time.
yeah, but the thing is, even as a character, people were just like, she's too powerful, she's too this, too that. She's, Carol is not a perfect character. She is supposed to mess up. She is supposed to not always be likable.
And she's supposed to be a boss ass bitch.
So it's one of those where she's a work in progress no matter what.
Yeah. All I care about really is that Carol may be sitting there getting into scrapes, maybe getting into shenanigans, but Carol is also, blonde haired, blue eyed, like, kind of got the Sydney Sweeney vibes and everything. But I feel like to a certain extent, even though she could really lean into a lot of like the whole like victimhood complex things that we have from like, people are out to get me, people are being mean. And I feel like to a certain extent that Carol is not taking the victim route in
She
things.
rarely allowed herself to take the victim route, largely because of the fact that she does not like to play the victim. I honestly think the only time we ever saw her play the victim route was when she was merged with Rogue. Because
I don't know if it's playing the victim so much as being a
Oh,
victim.
no, but that was the thing. During that time, Rogue was actively trying to be a better person. She was trying to be better, be a good person.
Yeah.
And any time that Carol took over the identity, she would basically be like, "Well, I'm gonna do this with Rogue's body because she owes me." But
But yeah.
the thing was that honestly was the only time I really felt like Carol was playing the victim.
Hmm.
Like, even with her alcoholism, she knew she had a problem and she took steps to correcting.
That's right. It's important.
And granted, she did have to hit rock bottom like most characters do. But it's like, even then, it was like she was in denial for a lot of it, but she never placed the blame on anybody but herself. It was
That is important. I've seen
yeah,
a lot of alcoholics blame everybody except themselves for
exactly.
their own
It's like the
actions.
only time that I think she ever blamed somebody is Rogue, and that's because
Rogue, like, completely
yeah,
stripped her
Rogue
of
did something that nobody else had ever done to Carol. She had taken away everything she was. Even with her rapist baby.
that. Immortus is still a completely
Yeah.
different person, and there's not like
But it's like he's still
becoming a mother to Immortus is very weird, but it is not the same kind of level of identity stripping as having your entire self sucked into somebody else.
yeah, and the thing was, well, Carol blamed the Avengers for letting what happened to her happen. That her friends did not take the attempts to try to protect her when she clearly was not able to protect herself. She never played it like she was being a victim in the same way that, it was just like she was a victim. She was like, this happened to me and you did nothing to protect me.
Yeah.
But at the end of that, she was still just like, this is something that it will take time for me to move past.
Yes.
I may never forgive you all for what happened. And the story ends with them going like, she shouldn't forgive us for this.
I don't think that there's a difference between forgiveness and accepting that
But
people have grown from their past mistakes.
but Carol pushed forward. She was very much I'm not going to let this define me and ruin me. Pushed herself to being a leader. She gave herself her promotion to Captain Marvel.
Captain!
She leads the Avengers, and she is somebody that is looked up to.
You know who else leads the Avengers, though?
Monica
Monica.
Rambeau, yes.
Monica Rambeau.
Yeah. And with Monica, with her story, it's, very much a finding her senior place sort of
Dealing
thing.
with the anti-blackness that exists in the entirety of the world.
Yeah.
And you know what? Overcoming it. That I think is really cool because there are a lot of people who could be Avengers leaders, and Monica being like the one who's like assembling the Avengers, I think is very cool. And we will spend more time talking about Monica and Kamala. Don't forget her
Yeah.
in part 2 of our two-parter. But since we're going to be, talking about things that are happening in the future, I thought I might maybe look at the calendar for what's happening for, this week. So we have on 11/7, we have Martha Clark Kent is her birthday. So happy birthday to her.
Yeah. For those who, in the rare event you don't know who that is Superman's adopted mother.
There are a lot of Scorpios running around because of Valentine's Day. I guess it's not really important. But interesting fact, Billy Baston on 11 became the first Captain Marvel in the DC
Not
universe.
to be real confused with the Marvel.
Completely different Captain Marvel.
Honestly, we could have had a long discussion about that because there was a major thing where technically Fawcett Comics created Captain Marvel first, and eventually Fawcett Comics got folded into DC. They had Captain Marvel for the longest time, but then Marvel Comics took up the name because copyright issue was kind of iffy there.
There's a reason why that man's name was Marvel.
Yeah, and then after they essentially had to stop naming the books Captain Marvel Comics and switch it to Shazam Comics. And then after the New 52, Captain Marvel was changed to Shazam. And I think now they're just calling him the Captain.
Okay, as long as we don't have to deal with Zachary Levi as Shazam, then I'm good.
No, he's burned that bridge at this point.
Pretty much. Interestingly, though, as we're talking about like burned bridges, Thor: The Dark World, which is generally regarded as one of Marvel's worst movies, one of the worst. I'm not saying it is the worst, but
honestly, it's not great, but I don't think it's terrible.
I don't think it's terrible.
I just think it's mid. It's a very mid movie.
It's bottom 5, and that's fine. Everything is not for everyone, but that debuted in theaters 11/8/2013. And as we move a little bit forward, 11/9, In 1940, the Justice Society of America was formed. This is a post-crisis version, so
Yeah, it's like there's different versions of the Justice Society, but yeah, after Crisis on Infinite Earths, this is when that version of the team was formed.
yeah.
You know, the original book, I'm not sure what time period it was that it formed.
Mhm.
We'd have to look that up.
Yeah, we'll look it up.
But yeah, but Justice Society, before the League, there was Society, and give respect to that team, you know?
Yeah, but on that note, it is time to mention that we have an Instagram and we are on Apple and Spotify and YouTube, and we're working on expanding our reach.
Yeah, upping your cred takes time.
But if you can sit there and take a couple of random explosions and turn them into a whole like power up situation, just you know what? I'll take it. I will take it. I will take it.
Yeah.
So you can follow us on Instagram at Up Your Nerd Cred Pod. If you're looking for me across platforms, I'm at Kira Davis.
And I'm at AM Diaz _art on Instagram and AM Diaz art on others media.
Send him the really good fan art, the good kind. You know the kind. And also, make sure that you talk to your friends and make sure that they like and subscribe to the pod. And your family and your coworkers you trust not to be weird about listening to the same podcast as you and like that.
And good night, everybody.
Ba 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 ba.